Well, Sebastian, my name is Mark Hurley. I'm a solution architect with Schneider Electric, and I work with our customers to help them with their data center strategy and bring cost-effective, risk-based solutions to solving their data center goals and objectives.
Modernization.
So, modernization is about improving your data center from a cost perspective and from a risk perspective. And if you don't keep your data center current, you're not going to be competitive in the marketplace. If you built the data center 10 years ago, it's probably not operating as efficiently as a new modern data center. Additionally, a data center that was built 10 years ago, there are new technologies that have come out that may not have been available at the time you built that data center. So your competition that has just built a new data center is now operating more efficiently, probably has a better risk profile, and is more attractive to their customers. That is if you are in the data center business and leasing out colo data centers. If you're an enterprise, it still applies. I mean, the cost to operate and run your data center goes in the cost of goods and services that you're providing your customers. So you want to be more competitive than your peers in that space. So modernization is important not only from a financial perspective, but also from a risk perspective. Well, first of all, if you have an old data center, you probably have assets that have reached the end of their useful life. And I liken it to, the tires on your automobile are rated for 40,000 miles. If you've got 50,000 miles on those tires, you're exposing yourself to operational risks there. Same thing holds true in data centers. Your UPS equipment ages, your air conditioning equipment ages, and can you afford to operate in that risk profile and perhaps have an interruption in your business? So that's the easy one. Everybody has to plan for replacing aged assets. But in addition to that, what you deployed 10 years ago may not be as efficient as the technology that is out today. So even if it hasn't reached the end of its useful life, if you have energy and sustainability goals in your data center and you're trying to be socially responsible, there is times where there's a business case to say, hey, hasn't even reached the end of its useful life, but from an energy perspective, it may make sense to replace it now rather than wait till it reaches the end of its useful life.
And Tommy, can I go from the ground up?
No, you can't rip everything out and build from the ground up. You might as well just build a new data center, because oftentimes going into an existing data center and trying to do modifications can be more expensive than going and building a new data center. So you got to evaluate that. But certainly there's technologies that have come out in the last 10 years that probably weren't available 10 years ago. So that may be something you want to add in addition on top of what you've already built to further enhance your data center operations. So when I look at modernization, I think about looking at the whole data center ecosystem. It's easy to get your arms around the hardware that's in the data center, and when it comes time for replacement, it's reached the end of its useful life to replace it. But look at software. Software enhancements have come out. Controls, DSIM solutions have evolved over the years. You may or may not have deployed some of those software solutions 10 years ago. So there's an opportunity to add some enhancement to your data center to improve the efficiency of the data center from an energy perspective, but maybe from an operational perspective. We got to be thinking about the maintenance costs of a data center and how we operate it. Controls maybe allow you to reduce your staff or make your staff more efficient and handle other duties within the data center environment. So modernization encompasses the whole data center environment. When you should modernize is really going to be a financial decision and a risk-based decision. So, if you're building a new data center now, you're going to be probably deploying the latest and greatest in technologies. And the data center industry has really matured. Back 15 years ago, there weren't a lot of standards and expertise around the data center, and everything was kind of one-off and unique. And now the industry has optimize the design of data centers. They know what the optimal price point is, what the construction lead time is. So, what you build today should be fairly modern. Where we're seeing a change in data center deployment is around making sure that you're building in a modular fashion and that you can scale and change course, because technology is changing all the time. So, you may build and design to 100 watts a square foot or 200 watts a square foot or 10 kW a rack today, but what's coming in the future? We're looking at advanced analytics and artificial intelligence, and those rack systems could be 20 kW a rack, 30 kW a rack. So you need to design with flexibility in mind and with scalability in mind so that you can adapt to the needs in a changing technology environment. I would call it quits on a data center if the cost to modernize your data center is in excess of what it would cost to go build a new greenfield data center. So every building is unique, and you need to look at what is it going to take to implement? Is it feasible? I mean, it may not even be feasible to modernize your data center to accommodate the new technology that's coming in. So everything in a capitalistic society is based on a cost-risk-based analysis. So it'll require different infrastructure, and we just talked about that here at Data Center Dynamics yesterday. We think liquid cooling will have a place in the future. As you start getting into these 30 kW rack, 40 kW rack densities, it gets very difficult to cool this technology with an air-based system. So I don't think you're going to have a data center, most likely, that is all at that rack density. What I see is we have very diverse environments. We have, low kW demand racks for storage, and then we got high kW demand racks for blade servers, and now when we get into this artificial intelligence, it could be 2 or 3 times what we're seeing today. So you have to have a diverse design where you can handle low density, medium density, high density environments, and liquid cooling may be coming about. Once again, everybody knows that liquid cooling is not a new idea. It was something that was used for mainframes 30 years ago, but it could be coming back into play in the next 10 years. So what I'm seeing is every asset has a life expectancy, and sometimes if you have the right software and monitoring system, you may be able to extend the life of that. What we're looking at now, and we think the future of data centers from a modernization standpoint is going to be software-defined data centers, pushing data to a cloud data lake where we can do advanced analytics on that data to determine when it's best to replace equipment. Frequency-based decisions, for maintenance or equipment replacements isn't the ideal way to operate your data center. So you may very well have a data center that has 15-year, 20-year-old UPS systems that are operating just as well as one with 10-year UPS systems. So we need to figure out how to use data to make intelligent business decisions about what our risk exposure is and when the optimal time to replace equipment and modernize.
Hard argument to make.
So that's an interesting question. When it comes to a software-defined data center and the use of data, it involves deploying control systems, monitoring systems, utilizing the Internet of Things to collect data, make business decisions. In a data center environment, you need the facility side of the house and the IT side of the house working together. And what I find, particularly with like DSIM solutions, is it's difficult to get both parties on the same page and figure out who's going to fund it. Personally, I think the IT side of the house has greater funds. When you look at how much they spend in deploying for the software and the IT kit, it dwarfs what the facility side of the house is spending to manage the physical infrastructure. So oftentimes it's easier for them to put it in their budget. But then you got to decide who's going to manage this system. They both need access to data that comes from a DSIM solution. And some of that data is overlapping. The IT side of the house needs as well as the facility side of the house needs. So in order for it to work effectively, you got to have somebody dedicated to managing that system. Otherwise, you're collecting data and nobody's doing anything with it. Why spend the money?
Good point.
Now, just kind of summarize, data center modernization is ongoing. Every business has to go through that, and you got to make intelligent decisions about when to modernize and do a cost-benefit analysis. But if you don't modernize, you're exposing yourself to increased risk and increased costs relative to your competition, and you're going to lose the battle.
I get ripped out.
Yeah, well, in a live active data center, you got to be very conscious about the order in which you go about modernizing. In a highly resilient, fault-tolerant, concurrently maintainable data center, it'll be a lot easier than in a data center that maybe doesn't have that level of resiliency. So it's got to be carefully planned and executed. I think data centers today are being built, as we've already discussed, with modularity and scalability in mind that'll make it easier to make those modernization changes in the data center.